live.
We are live.
Okay, great. All right, just want to welcome everybody. As you're already here, you come and join on. We decided to do this today because we're just saying it so much.
Yeah.
You know, the conversation happens so often.
Mm-hmm.
And so we labeled it the top 5 considerations for your EFT practice niche.
Right.
Is it niche or niche?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No,
It
there's
can
so
go either
many
way.
other things to consider. And I think they're both right.
Yeah. Okay. So the top 5 considerations, I guess we should start off with number 1 or number 5? Oh, let's just start off with the first. It doesn't really matter, does it?
Okay.
All right. So the first top consideration that we looked at of whether you need to have a niche. Let's just start with that.
Yeah.
Is practice niche necessary? Do you have to have one? And maybe we should even define what that means a little bit first.
I think most people get it. I think that that it's the way, it's how you're specializing. And what the research that we conducted a few years ago when we were really looking at this question, it's that there are only like really 2 clear paths to success and making a really decent and nice living from this field of EFT or tapping practice. And one is to become a trainer, in which you can be a just in case.
Done.
And so one is to become a trainer. So you go through certification level, advanced level, then and then start your training as a trainer. And that's a good way to be a generalist. But if you're not, then what we've seen in the research is what every business coach out there will tell you, which is you got to find a niche. You got to find something that you're going to specialize in.
So let me just say one thing. Another one that actually a generalist could work in is a very small town. In a very small town, you're the only EFT mind body health practitioner. Everybody knows you, and you just have a reputation for being that person. And it's less important to have a niche. But if you're going to be in a city, if you're going to be in an urban area, if you're going to have a worldwide practice, the specialty is going to lift you up and make you noticed. And what I want to say is, you know, sometimes we think of a specialist like a gastroenterologist or, you know, a knee surgeon, where the only thing that they do is knees or, you know, GI things, etc.
Right.
But what I want to say is that having a practice niche doesn't mean that you have to limit your practice to that niche, to that focus. You can have and see other people, but your marketing strategy, the way that you're perceived, if you want to be uplifted and seen as an expert, if you want to be uplifted and seen as where people say, oh my goodness, this is the best person you need to go to for this issue, etc. To be able to be found, I mean, here's something. It's like if you're thinking about your practice online, when was the last time that you went to the second page of Google when you looked something up? I'm going to challenge you even further. When was the last time you scrolled down to the bottom of the first page of Google? That tells you something, doesn't it? So if you're thinking that you're going to be in those first 5 spots on Google for just tapping or EFT, you got a lot of things coming, because that's not likely going to happen. There's a lot of people that have been there for years and years ahead of you. So how do you rise to the top? How do you get perceived an expert? And why does that matter? One of the things I also want to say is that when you choose a niche and you market yourself as an authority, as an expert, as somebody that really has knowledge in that arena, people will come to you for that. People will find you for that, right? But does that mean that's the only thing that you work on in a session?
Never.
What else? You might start working on, they come to you for a health related issue, but part of the stress is their relationship, and you work on their relationship, and then part of it is their kids, and then part of it is whatever, and you help them with those. And guess what? Do they not refer their friends because, oh, this is outside of your practice?
No. That's how you grow a practice, actually. But I want to just say that you started, that there was something that you said, which sometimes we don't agree. I actually have not met someone that has been able to hang a shingle as an EFT practitioner in a small town and been successful in the type of success we're talking about.
Right.
Like it, and there are different goals for people. Like there are some that, are happy with like seeing 1 or 2 clients a week. That's how I started in my small town, was a couple of people a week, seeing them in person. And I was the only one around doing that sort of thing. So I did get clients, but again, small town, 1 or 2 people a week. And that was fine when I was a full-time mom and I needed this part-time hobby thing. But then some of you know my story around money and facing my own money challenges and money blocks. And I came face to face with the possibility of going bankrupt when I had to like really figure it out and losing my house and all of that story during a divorce. So
not me.
I really took it seriously. Like I needed a niche, and I found one, and that's what really propelled me. So yeah, I see the niche or not niche. Absolutely, we're talking about making money at this, not being a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Then for that reason, and the reason of, we just don't have mainstream acceptance yet. Most people do not know what EFT is. And so how do you get to those people that are willing to part with their money for you to assist them with something amorphous, and then you enter into these conversations about, oh, EFT, let me tell you what it does. And most people just kind of walk away, tune you out, roll their eyes.
Mm-hmm. Because people aren't looking for a meridian endpoint percussive technique to help their lives?
They're really not, sadly. Not yet. Right. So we will get to the point where you are in an auditorium filled with 500 people. You say, raise your hands if you've heard of EFT tapping. And when more than half of them have heard of it, then we'll change this conversation. But for now, I know that you don't want to spend hours and hours and days and months and years struggling. I know that for most of us, we want both. We want we want to have earn a good living, doing good work in the world. There's nothing
making a difference. Yeah.
More fulfilling than that. There really isn't.
And people like to say, I've got the best da-da-da. Mine's the specialist. Right. Mine's the top person in. Yeah. People just like to do that. Yeah. Right? I mean, we all do. So we just want to use that.
Right. Okay, let's get on to the next consideration.
The next one is an important, what I want to call a risk management consideration of choosing a niche that's within your practice.
For sure.
So, people come in, let's say non-licensed practitioners, and they come into this field and they're just so moved and inspired by it. And they say, I want to help veterans. I want to work with people with PTSD. I want to help people with addictions. I want to help all of those things. And they're not licensed.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't know that they don't have to be licensed. They see studies for, videos about, they hear it. Right.
And if you end up getting caught in the legal system, and let me just say this, you're accountable for your scope of practice and where you practice from. So, and where your clients are. So it's not only, oh yeah, well, I just don't work with, I work with people from around the world, and that makes me okay because, somehow, no, it's about, and I hear people like in Europe say, oh, well, America, you're more litigious and you've got legal issues. So it's okay because, I'm here in Europe practicing. Well, if you have American clients, then you're held by that. And it's too much, but they could actually go after you because your client is in the US. So you have to think of all of that.
So
and also the other thing I wanted to add before I forget is, so it's not only that you're not a licensed mental health care professional and it's outside of your scope of practice to work on somebody with PTSD and all of that, but we have so many people that are licensed mental health care professionals that are trained in EFT that want to start a global, expanded coach type practice, including EFT. They see EFT as the vehicle for that. But again, that comes into consideration when they're deciding the niche.
Sure.
Because they just can't say, okay, I'm licensed, so I can
work with
somebody.
Addiction.
As a coach.
So this is really important. I mean, we go into, we're doing this on behalf, because we run the EFT Marketing and Business Academy. And a big part of that is we have a risk management, because when you start to, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to put yourself out there. And if you're putting yourself out there and you're promoting you and your practice, then you're going to be under greater scrutiny. You're going to be observed and watched. You're going to be observed for what you're putting on your website, and whether you use testimonials, and whether you have diagnoses, and whether you're using treatment modality, you know, all of those things. You're going to be putting yourself out there, and you're going to have to take these things into consideration. And if you can't yell from, you know, the top of the building, this is what I do and this is my niche, because of legal and ethical considerations,
sure,
then you're not going to, or you're going to be worried that you're going to get caught, et cetera. So,
exactly.
you know, there's a distinction between saying EFT has studies, and there has been, for example, meta-analyses on the effectiveness of PTSD, of EFT for PTSD. That's very different than saying I treat PTSD on my website.
Right.
Right.
Or a testimonial, which will get you in hot water pretty quick.
Right.
From a client who swears that you got rid of her PTSD.
Yep.
Well, you still can't have that on your website. It's just
it's
the way
risky.
things are.
Right.
Yeah.
So considering your practice parameters,
Yes.
considering legally, considering diagnoses, considering all those things are an important consideration in developing a practice niche that you take into account.
All right. Number three.
All right. How about choosing a niche with something that you are currently personally involved with? So let's just say, for example, let's just talk about different kind of niches for a second. So a niche could be a demographic. You know, women that are going through transition in life, and let's just say it's post-divorce.
Okay.
Okay. So in other words, I specialize in working now. Wow, that really limits it, doesn't it? There's only women, and only women that have just gone through a divorce. Well, that's a couple millions of people right there. So it's not really a very small niche at all. And let's just say that you a few years ago went through that. And so you very much are either living in that niche, you know it well because you're experiencing it, you're a woman, you've got a divorce, etc., or a woman or man, woman going through menopause, or somebody that's dealing with a particular condition. So this is something that we are actively knowing.
So we know it because we've lived it and we've overcome it.
Well, we can say that as well. So that would be a second segment. So in other words, if it's something that you've overcome,
that's
a physical challenge.
That's a super powerful niche.
Why?
Because you automatically become the expert.
Okay. And there's automatic respect and authority because you have that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a really good one. Something that you've overcome. Something that you're living and you know personally. Do you have to choose that?
Yeah.
Well, you don't.
No, you don't have to choose that. I'm just looking at some of your questions and comments. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Rita. Absolutely, you know, people aren't looking for meridian percussionists. No, they're not. And Rita, yes, exactly. That's why we have Midge's course within our year-long course, because it is important to take those things into consideration. You should absolutely avoid DSM language. Yep. And a board may file a complaint. Not only that, I've seen that jealous colleagues. Yeah, we don't want to think about that. But that's been the source of people receiving complaints, is that they see what you're doing and they feel threatened and they, file a complaint. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So tagging onto that one is, okay, let's just say that you have overcome something.
Yes.
Does that mean that therefore you should choose that as a niche?
I mean, even though it's a really powerful niche, you might not want to. You might not. It might.
Why? Why wouldn't you want to? You'd have automatic authority.
Right.
You know what the clients are thinking, basically.
Right. Yeah.
You're able to write about it from multiple perspectives and with great insight. So why wouldn't you choose it?
Well, how about you just don't want to? You're done, over, it's gone, you're resolved it, and you've moved on with your life in a different place, and you can't see yourself consistently working with that population over and over and over again. It feels draining. So one of the things that I hear from business clients and MBA students is, well, I really feel drawn to working with people that are in the process of dying. And because I helped my husband, or I helped my friend, during that period, and helped her with the whole dying process, and I feel so called for to do that kind of very deep spiritual meaning work, and so my question is always, can you see yourself working in that population on a consistent, regular basis for the next 3 years while you establish that niche? And with that one especially, people then are like, they sit back and maybe not so much. Others are like, oh yeah, I feel so passionate about it. Then that's really good.
Yeah.
That we really want you to check on how passionate you are about a particular topic.
And let's just say that you're working with, let's say, relationship issues, and you've been through divorce, you've been through conflicts, you know it.
Yeah.
And who you tend to attract all the time are people that are in the range of depression, in the range of really being in the pain of that. And you start to realize, you know what? I'm not feeling uplifted by this.
Right.
Right? I'm kind of like going back into that swampy place, and I worked so hard get out of it,
right,
that sometimes focusing on a niche can be a source of trigger. And this can easily be with things like bullying and physical abuse and sexual abuse and things that you've used tapping to help with.
Right.
But having, when I say when you develop a practice niche, about 50% of your practice will end up being that niche topic.
Right.
It's a general rule of thumb. So do you want to spend half your time dealing with that topic? That might be too much.
Well,
that might be too triggering. Maybe. It all depends. It's just a consideration is all I'm saying.
I want to go back to what you said at the very beginning of this, which is, who has a session that's all just in that narrowly focused little box?
Yep.
It starts off that way, but you helping someone that was, let's say your niche is all about, let's say moving through divorce, and you start with that, but you realize that the blocks have to do with me not feeling like I deserve to ask for what I want in the divorce. And that really goes back to my relationship with my mother, who never made me feel like I could ask for what I needed. And so most of the session is around tapping around those kinds of things. So take that into consideration as well when choosing a niche, is that you're not going to be just narrowly focused on that. However, you do have to feel passionate enough to be able to talk about this, or blog about it, or podcast about it, or have
Facebook lives about it,
live presentations about it, in person, online, those kinds of your marketing plan. So if you're not, then it comes across. And so that's what we're saying, is that people feel that passion from you for helping others resolve what you have struggled with and all of that. But it also could come from experiences of helping others achieve their goals.
Sometimes I talk to people in the way that they choose their niches based on what's showing up in their practice. And I can give some
your niche finds you.
Your niche finds you, and that kind of has a teeter-totter quality.
Yeah.
Because what I also know is whatever is unresolved in me also tends to show up in my practice.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a great learning mirror, but not necessarily where I want to put all my time and energy and expertise, right? So,
exactly.
So sometimes that's so.
And
number 5 is sometimes you can just choose. In other words, find a need.
What do you mean?
Right? In other words, let's just say that, okay, I haven't yet experienced, whatever issues, weight loss, menopause, relationship problems, excellence at work, and public speaking in school and students, and there's so many different niches of populations and topics and considerations.
Yep.
And sometimes you could just say, well, you know what? I can just pick one because I think that there's really a need. I mean, I have come across, just trying to think, who is it that really is just, where's there a need? So when I think, for example, in the EFT world, who really specializes in, let's just say, transgender issues?
Oh, yeah.
And I come across things, it's like, wow, I wish there was somebody that really was just specializing in that. Yep. It's not saying that any of us couldn't work with that, but somebody that really specialized, focused, wrote about, became an expert with that would be spectacular.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I think that we can just choose a niche
as
long as it inspires us, as long as we're passionate about it.
As long as it's within our scope of practice, as long as we know how we're going to talk about this out into the world. And also, the last bit of advice before we go is, you can test a niche. You can
Right.
do all kinds of niche experimenting before you say, I'm proclaiming a niche, and then spend money and time on website and on, presentations, all that. There are really great ways of testing your niche to see if it really does
Dip your toe
resonate
in.
with you. For sure.
For a while. See
Yeah.
if the energy grows or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right.
so we're going to do this probably each week
I think so.
because we're starting up the yearly
EFT
EFT MBA program.
Marketing and Business Academy, a year-long program where we spend 2 whole months just on the idea of finding your niche.
Because it's
And
the foundation of your website. It's the foundation of
Absolutely.
your blogging. It's the foundation. So if you want a free 45-minute evaluation consultation, just go to EFTMBA.com and you can set that up. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back.
All right. And if you have some suggestions for what you want us to cover,
Let us
we
know.
have ideas, but it might be fun to hear what you all have questions about that you want us to explore with marketing
Your
in your
practice.
EFT practice.
Thanks for joining.